Turn in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. On this broadcast, we report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We do make commentary. Commentary is not news. Commentary is opinion. My opinion is not news. Your opinion is not news. But let's discuss our opinion, shall we? Let's debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. This morning, it happened. Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democrat Party presidential nominee, which, by the way, became official last night in the middle of the night, in the dark of night, the Democrat nominee was officially picked. Now, that's not how I would report the story, but I'm just giving you a preview of how it's going to be put out in front of the public. In the dark of night, in a smoke-filled room. Decisions were made for you by them. Okay, that's probably not the way it worked. It just happened to work out that way. The Democrat Party picked Kamala Harris, and in turn, Kamala Harris picked, that's right, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. ABC News went to the air with a special report this morning. Here it is.
I want to go straight to Selena Wang, who is there in Philadelphia. And Selena, Walz appears to fit the all-American definition of a man from middle America. High school teacher, football coach, member of the Army National Guard before becoming a member of Congress and now governor.
Exactly. He really has that perfect backstory. He also has those rural roots, and he's really emerged as the dark horse in this Veep Stakes race. He has emerged as the favorite very recently as he has been on the cables, on the network, showing that he can effectively push back on those Republican attacks. He's the one, George, remember, who labeled J.D. Vance and his Republican allies as, quote, weird, which gained a lot of steam with the Harris campaign. He has this folksy, personal, informal vibe that has really appealed to a lot of Democrats, and they believe that his rural backstory, the fact that he was a former member of the NRA, as you say, he is this former high school teacher, he was a football coach, that this can help appeal to those independent swing state voters. But it is unprecedented, George, how all of this has played out. I was told that as of last night, according to sources, Vice President Harris still had not made her decision and that her team was printing out signs with multiple different candidates on it, ready to go at any moment. This decision coming down to the wire. Her and her close team have been keeping this decision under lock and key. They wanted to avoid any leaks.
All right, so that's how ABC hit the air this morning. There were some great reports from the local news, and I want to play one for you. This is from Fox 9 in Minneapolis. This was something that was obviously dropped on the anchors at the very last second, and here is how they reported the story as their governor was picked for VP.
And we're going to continue our coverage this morning with analysis from Hamlet University political science professor David Schultz.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Well, let's talk about, I know we've been for the last hour discussing this, but for people maybe just tuning in, what does this mean for Minnesota?
What it means for Minnesota is a few different things. First off, of course, it puts Minnesota on the map again. You know, for many people on the two coasts, we're flyover zone. Suddenly, everybody's going to be interested in Minnesota and the Minnesota governor. But internally to politics, what this means is a couple of possibilities here. One is assuming that Harris does win and Walz is the VP. He resigns as governor probably at the end of the year. This means Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan goes up to become governor. Bobby Joe Champion, who is the president of the Senate, goes up to become lieutenant governor, and it has a cascading effect in terms of what it means for other positions. But if that were to happen, we would have the first female governor, first Native American governor in Minnesota, and we would have the first African American lieutenant governor in Minnesota. So a lot of, let's say, again, cascading or domino effects internally in Minnesota politics.
Let's talk about this pick. We knew pretty much at the start of the day it was likely going to be Walz or Shapiro. Those were the two top finalists. The final two is what we were hearing from sources all across the board. What do you think changed? Why do you think Walz tipped the scales, if you will? Why do you think he was picked over Shapiro out of Pennsylvania?
Okay, I think a couple of possibilities. One, I'll first say that he's been that is Walz, a very good defender of Democratic Party values and a very good in terms of criticizing the Trump administration and, let's say, the Republicans. I think that's first. Second, I always say that the first factor in terms of picking a vice president is do no harm. And there were some people who said that Shapiro's stance on Israel, some will even go as far as saying because he was Jewish, also hurt him in terms of possibilities. But at the end of the day, I think for Walz, he represents a lot of what the progressives in the Democratic Party want to do. You know, his positions on abortion, LGBTQ issues, the spending for educational funding, for a whole host of issues, voting rights, I think is important. And what this signals to me is that Harris is going to run a campaign from the progressive left at this point, is that she was not going with a more moderate Shapiro, a more moderate Kelly from Arizona, but is going to run really a progressive ticket and set up a clear contrast between the Trump-Vance ticket. So this is a pretty significant direction for Harris to be going for Walz. And also, given the fact that he's a relative unknown across the country at this point, I think one of the challenges is going to be to ask how well does Walz introduce himself, and can he help deliver some additional votes that Harris will need in those critical swing states to be able to win the election.
So Tim Walz is the guy that has been picked, and how the professor points out, how does he introduce himself? How does he introduce himself to the American public? Well, he sort of kind of did that already. He branded the Trump-Vance ticket as weird. He is the guy that brought it up. It was seized on by Democrat circles in the mainstream media, and he had a chance to explain it on State of the Union with Jake Tapper from CNN.
You've gotten some attention this week for calling Trump and Vance and Republicans in general weird. And I think that you're the one that set this tone. And there's this shift. The Harris campaign seems to be following your lead, echoing this language. Why do you think weird is a more effective attack line against Trump than what Democrats have been done previously, which is argue that he's an existential threat to democracy?
Yeah, and it's an observation on this, and being a school teacher, I see a lot of things. But my point on this is people kept talking about, look, Donald Trump is going to put women's lives at risk. That's 100% true. Donald Trump is potentially going to end constitutional liberties that we have, end voting. I do believe all those things are a real possibility, but it gives him way too much power. Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind. And I thought we just give him way too much credit. And I think one of the things is when you just ratchet down some of the the scariness or whatever and just name it what it is. I got to tell you, Jake, my observation on this is, have you ever seen the guy laugh? That seems very weird to me that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior. And I don't think you call it anything else. It is simply what we're observing.
All right. So that's the genesis of weird. And it came from Governor Walz. Now, will this matter as time goes forward? No, this is one of these fragments that I keep talking about. The fragments, the fragmentary little bits and bats and so on and so forth, sort of like a tennis ball in a tennis match. It really doesn't, it's not going to matter much, even close to a hill of beans after a week or so. But it is something that has been brought to the public eye by Tim Walz. What I find interesting about this is that when I was thinking about who Kamala Harris would pick as her VP, I said, probably going to be a progressive. And I thought that it would be Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg, absolutely progressive, no doubt about it, and so on. Well, what people don't know about Tim Walz is, since he is kind of a dark horse and he is coming out of virtually nowhere, is that he is a progressive. His progressive politics have been made plain at the Minnesota state level, and I can see no reason why he wouldn't immediately just fold into that progressive left ticket. Now, will that play with the American people? Don't know. Don't have any idea. Not sure about any of it. But all we can do is we can just sit and muse and wonder about exactly how that's going to go. So we now know that it's Trump Vance and it's Harris Walz. So that's where we stand. Let's see. CNN had something on this, and John King was a guy who brought all this into sharp focus. Let's go ahead and take a look at that as my computer froze again. So anyway, that being said, we are seeing this pick coming out, and the breathless coverage from ABC this morning, virtually hyperventilating, talking about Tim Walz. That's the next thing as you try to build on the momentum of all the breathless coverage and myth-making of Kamala Harris. Now you're in a position where you're going to pick up on that momentum with Tim Walz, and he's going to be the next best thing to sliced bread, if not better than sliced bread. And people are going to say, okay, that's fantastic. It's wonderful. But who is this guy again? And that's going to be an issue. Not so much. The guy is an old hand political pro. This guy knows his way around. He's been a congressman. He has done politics. He will bring an experience level to Kamala Harris's ticket that she otherwise does not have, or that people otherwise do not believe. And so when all this comes down, this is probably a well-reasoned pick. But I doubt very sincerely that Tim Walz fits the mold of what we saw with Joe Biden picking his vice president in Kamala Harris. Joe Biden was given the presidency by the Democrat power elite. We know that to be true. It was taken away. His presidency, Biden's presidency, was taken away by the Democrat power elite. And Kamala Harris, in a situation where, say, for example, if she is one heartbeat away from the president or one absent heartbeat away from the presidency, then she would be someone who would be given the presidency by the Democrat power elite. And thus the inference is these people would control the presidency. We are clear that that's what's been happening for the last 3.5 years. Joe Biden hasn't been running anything. He's a figurehead president. And so they had their next in line for that particular circumstance. Well, Tim Walz doesn't fit that pattern. Tim Walz is not a puppet. Tim Walz would never be a puppet. He is obviously a cooperative, progressive politician. That may be true. But the Democrat power elite maybe ran out of candidates to fill that progression of puppeted leaders that they have picked in the last several years, in the last election cycle for sure. What do you think about that? 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. So Kamala Harris got her campaign off in a rousing fashion. Her campaign ads are already there, but they're not talking about issues. They're talking about how wonderful and amazing and fantastic she is. Is she indeed all of those things? Well, as I told you, I guess last week and into this week, there are pieces of video that have and will follow Kamala Harris around like a millstone. We found one, and while she has been coached out of it, at least so far, what people have called an oncoming faceplant is still in the cards when it comes to Kamala Harris. Will that indeed happen? Will Tim Walz be an asset to the campaign, or will it cement a choice for the American people between progressive leftism and something else. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment as we continue on Tuesday morning.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Good morning. We are bringing you the news honestly and fairly. The news is Tim Walz is the running mate pick for Vice President Kamala Harris. And we told you that we had a CNN report on that very subject this morning, and let's bring that to you as we continue on the Wells Report. Here you go.
Tim Walz of Minnesota is her choice.
Tim Walz, being the governor there, he is known for things like signing universal school meals bill into fruition. And also, he is a veteran, a gun owner. He points out a hunter, a father. He also put into place a historic gun safety measure into law in his state. He is also known as a progressive. And so there are a lot of people talking about what this ticket was going to look like. And it looks like we are getting reporting now from our Jeff Zeleny, from our John King, that indeed Tim Walz has been the person picked. The governor of Minnesota will likely be her vice presidential candidate.
John King, Jeff Zeleny, Jamie Gangel, MJ Lee, all on this reporting from 4 sources. I believe we have John King walking into
this.
frame right now. Since you are the one with us, John, we will go to you first with this pick, the why and what it means.
Well, the why is going to be comfort level. The why is going to be that Harris believes this is a good governing partner. And the interesting conversation is going to be, again, if you look in the rearview mirror, history tells us you can't find a lot of data that says vice presidential picks are decisive when it comes to the election. So what is Vice President Harris looking to do here? Number one, a governing partner. Number two, a progressive Democrat. What is the Trump campaign saying? That she's, quote unquote, dangerously liberal. What will Governor Walz say? You mean a liberal who has his state guarantee abortion rights for women? A liberal who has his state feed young poor children who aren't getting meals, to make the argument that progressive government works at a time when a lot of people are disillusioned in their government.
All right, that was John King. John King's a political pro. He knows how to report on politics, and he did a good job there. Now, I was talking a little bit about some of these pieces of video and statements that are going to come out. And I'm not doing this in a partisan way. I'm doing this because you need to be forewarned that indeed this is going to happen. And one of them was brought out earlier today. Take a look at Kamala Harris from 2017 talking about everyone being woke.
We have to stay active. And, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
Fortunately, she's been coached out of most of that. I keep talking about President Trump, and I keep saying, sir, if you want to be the president of the United States, you have to start communicating like the president of the United States. Tim Walz, in some video earlier this morning, was talking about he just says whatever pops into his mind, and he does. But Kamala Harris also is in a position where she has some work to do to behave as a president as well. And that is going to be hindered, all of this coaching, and by the way, she's following it very well. All of this coaching is only going to be as effective as the next piece of haunting video that pops up on mainstream media. And so, as I said in the 2020 run-up to the election, I said President, who was going to be President Biden, is a gaffe machine. Kamala Harris is also someone who has left unbelievably crazy things behind her. And this is true for her entire career. And so just be forewarned. So what are the reactions? Who's saying what about Tim Walz? Fox News is also is already out with some controversies surrounding Tim Walz. And so the same kind of food fighting that you saw from the leftist press going after J.D. Vance has now begun in earnest from the right side of the mainstream media spectrum. And we'll have more of that for you. What does Donald Trump have to say? We'll also explain that as we continue. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. The battle is at least framed, if not joined. We now know who the Democrat pick for running mate for Kamala Harris is. And we'll continue with the story as we continue on this Tuesday morning. Again, our telephone number, 817-379-2172. Give us a buzz. Tell us what you think.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. Let's see. Okay. There have been some chats. Yvonne has weighed in with a few things. She said, former member of NRA? Yeah, former member, I guess. He's a hunter. Yeah, okay. We'll find out more about that as time goes by. Let's see. Then she says, oh my God, a gray-headed white male. Wow. Yeah, from what I understand, says Yvonne, he is as liberal as she is. Well, there's a difference between liberal and progressive. As I brought up on several occasions here on the Wells Report, the left likes to double down when they make an error. I'm not saying that picking Tim Walz is an error. What I'm saying is that when liberalism was characterized by many people across America as a mental disease, the left in America, again, doubled down, and we got the squad. And now apparently we have one of these ultra liberal progressive people on the Democrat ticket. Now, is that the way that's going to be? Well, there is some reaction coming to us, and this is all kind of catch as catch can. This is breaking news as we come to the Wells Report. Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democrat Party presidential nominee, named Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate as she faced off against former President Trump, or will face off, in the 2024 election. The naming of 60-year-old Walz was not a shocker, as his name was instantly thought to be in contention in the 2 weeks since Harris succeeded President Biden as the party nominee. Walz, a former congressman, is in his second term as the governor of Minnesota, a state Democrats have reliably won in presidential elections for decades, but that the Trump campaign has aimed at flipping this cycle. Quote, "I am proud to announce that I've asked @Tim Walz to be my running mate," Harris officially announced on X. "As a governor, a coach, a teacher, a veteran, he's delivered for working families like his. It's great to have him on the team. Now let's get to work." Harris also said that one of the things that stood out to me about Tim is how his convictions on fighting for the middle class runs deep. "It's personal," she said. "He grew up in a small town in Nebraska, spending summers working on his family's farm. His father died of cancer when he was 19. His family relied on Social Security survivor benefit checks to make ends meet. At 17, he enlisted in the National Guard. He served for 24 years. He used his GI Bill benefits to go to college and became a teacher. He served as both a football coach and the advisor of the Gay Straight Alliance." Harris said she wanted to share his background both because it's impressive in its own right and because you see in no uncertain terms how it informs his record. Quote, "He worked with Republicans to pass infrastructure investments. He cut taxes for working families. He passed a law to provide paid family and medical leave to Minnesotan families. He made Minnesota the first state in the country to pass a law that provided constitutional abortion protections after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And as an avid hunter, he passed a bill requiring universal background checks for gun purchases." But Harris said what impressed me most about Tim is his deep commitment to his family. And she said she looks forward to building an administration that, quote, "reflects our shared values." The Trump campaign, obviously, with news at the ready, has said this. They are blasting Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, as, quote, a dangerously liberal, extremist, while warning that their vision for the country is every American's nightmare. Recently, Walz attacked former President Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, as being weird, an insult that the Harris campaign immediately embraced. The Trump campaign, though, blasted Walz for his liberal policies and views, which they say complements Harris perfectly. Quote, "It's no surprise that San Francisco liberal Kamala Harris wants West Coast wannabe Tim Walz as her running mate. Walz spent his governorship trying to reshape Minnesota in the image of the Golden State," said Trump campaign National Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She went on to say that while Walz pretends to support Americans in the heartland, when the cameras are off, he believes that rural America is, quote, "mostly cows and rocks," unquote. They go on to say from proposing his own carbon-free agenda to suggesting stricter emission standards for gas-powered cars and embracing policies to allow convicted felons to vote, Walz is obsessed with spreading California's dangerously liberal agenda far and wide. She also added, "If Walz won't tell the voters the truth, we will. Just like Kamala Harris, Tim Walz is a dangerously liberal extremist, and the Harris-Walz California dream is every American's nightmare." Kayleigh McEnany has weighed in. She is a former Trump person, and she has made it clear that she has an idea or two or three about this pick of Tim Walz. And here is what she said earlier today on Fox News. And let me get the sound.
in political history. What's your take on Tim Walz on the undercard now?
This is a stunning choice. I imagine there's a lot of cheering at Mar-a-Lago at the moment. Look, Tim Walz, he's no one to scoff at. He unseated a 6-term Republican in Congress. He won a conservative district. He began as a moderate. And then he had a radical transformation as soon as he got a trifecta in Minnesota. I think it is fair to call him a progressive in sheep's clothing. When you look at his record over the last few years, what you see are transgender surgeries for minors, carbon electrical grid by 2040, driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. In function, his abortion policy allows abortion until birth. These are policies that are far to the left of America. And as John McCormack at the Wall Street Journal pointed out, Kamala Harris has to do the exact opposite of what Tim Walz did. Tim Walz became more progressive. Kamala Harris is trying to become more moderate. But Republicans are going to say, you've shed all your progressive policies, but yet you chose a progressive instead of the guy who outperformed Donald Trump and Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, and that man's name is Josh Shapiro.
And that could potentially bring support from Jewish voters, something the Harris campaign needs sorely, no matter who's on the ticket with her. What do you think tipped the scales for the campaign? It is, as you mentioned, a bit of a shock choice. Do you think it was an ideology bent here, or do you think it was based on raw polling?
So the word coming out of the Kamala Harris camp to reporters was chemistry. She wanted someone with whom she had chemistry. I would love to know what Obama said to her on the phone, because this time last cycle, 4 years ago, Joe Biden was having apprehensions about choosing Kamala Harris. He called Obama. He expressed these reservations to Obama per CNN, and Obama said back to him, none of that is as important as winning. So I wonder what Obama said, because if this is a chemistry choice, that's fantastic if you have chemistry. But if you don't make it to Pennsylvania Avenue in 2 months, the chemistry doesn't matter. So I've got to believe this was an innate decision of how she was feeling. But feelings should go out the window when you're looking at the path to 270.
So Tim Walz is 60 years old. He came to politics late in life, really at the age of 42. He was a high school teacher. He was a high school football coach. He was with Dana and me on this program 2 weeks ago. He's affable. He's likable. He carries a smile with just about everywhere he goes. And I think maybe the personality characteristics here is probably what sold him with Kamala Harris. Ultimately,
so that's what you're seeing from Fox News. That is essentially live this morning, as the very latest comes out to us that indeed that Tim Walz is the guy, and it is based on chemistry. And Kayleigh McEnany does bring up something very interesting. Remember, Kamala Harris is a creature of the political Democrat elite. She was given that position, and as we just found out, there were conversations between President Obama and soon-to-be President Biden regarding his pick of Kamala Harris. Now, we talked a little bit about what the possibilities might have been. Certainly, Kamala Harris is not going to be able to withstand clear direction from the Democrat Party elite. And so what has happened here is that Democrat Party elite has again exerted itself to pick an old white guy to be the VP of the Harris ticket. So hang on a second here. So this is something else I brought up. I brought up Pete Buttigieg. And it wasn't so much that I thought that Pete Buttigieg would be the guy, but I did bring up the fact that this is an opportunity for the Democrat Party elite to rehabilitate themselves to a degree. What they have done is they have both given themselves a chance to win, but have also leveraged a political change in the party should they lose. What do I mean? Well, Pete Buttigieg and Tim Walz are clear progressives, and the Democrat Party has a real problem. The progressive movement in the Democrat Party threatens to bring that party to a socialist Democrat agenda, as opposed to a Democrat one, an American Democrat agenda. And this is an opportunity for the Democrat Party to be able to say to the progressives, okay, so here you go. Here's your chance to win an election. Now, the odds, regardless of the glowing coverage that you're seeing from the mainstream media, the left-biased mainstream media, the glowing coverage of Kamala Harris notwithstanding, there will be moments of reality for this ticket. And if indeed those moments of reality with regards to the progressive past, etc., of Tim Walz and certainly Kamala Harris, if those things come to the fore in the later stages of this presidential campaign, then the chances are very good they will lose. If indeed they do, will the Democrat Party elite be able to say, okay, we tried progressivism, it did not work, and therefore we're going to move away from it and get back to a more American Democrat Party as opposed to a progressive Democrat Party? I think that's on the table. Now, when you sit back and look at it and you say, well, now hang on a second, here's an identity party. They are picking people based on who they or what they are as opposed to who they are and what they think. Then how are they going to explain another old white guy on their ticket? Kayleigh McEnany said that they're cheering at Mar-a-Lago. Well, they may well be, because there are issues there with this VP pick, this running mate pick, that are going to come to the fore. And you just saw it. I mean, this has been an hours old discussion. And while all news agencies have news ready to go in case of whatever event happens, then you certainly can expect, and we've just seen that the Trump campaign was ready as well. And so this is the arcane art of political myth making at the beginning of a campaign. And yes, it's been successful in the case of VP Harris. And now we'll continue with this glowing coverage of the old football coach, the old coach. But it's certainly at odds with a lot of the politics the Democrat Party has been playing. As I said earlier, there was an article that talks a little bit about let me see what I've got here. 5 potential issues. Let me see if I can bring this up. And like I said, this is breaking coverage, so this might be a little messy this morning. Let's see. 5 Walz issues. And I'm going to the website. Let's see here. No, they don't have anything on it yet. It popped up as a breaking news scenario. Let me see if I can bring that back up as we keep going here. Let's see. Who is Tim Walz? That's from USA Today. You've already heard about that. Trump reacts. Let's see. What else? Okay. Yeah, we don't have it yet, but it just popped up as a little blurb. We'll have that for you as the morning progresses. But there are going to be very serious issues that the Harris-Walz campaign is going to have to deal with. But then again, there are very serious issues the Trump Vance crew has to deal with as well. Let's see. This is something that's going on right now that's live. Let's see if VP or the VP pick for Donald Trump is still, he's taking questions now, and maybe some of them are going to be about Tim Walz. So let's take a dip into this coverage. This is a live event somewhere, I guess, in Pennsylvania. This is JD Vance. Take a look. Oh,
Look,
that's
if
great.
you've got 20 million illegal aliens in this country, not all of them are bad people. Most of them are probably very good people. But if you break the law to come into this country, you've got to be willing to send some of those people back. That's the Donald Trump approach. And if you don't do that, you don't have a real border. And the people who will suffer the most are the people right behind me who are going to continue to have their communities poisoned by the fentanyl that the Mexican drug cartels bring across that open border. Now, you asked about the remarks that I made you said that they were offensive to millions of women. Well, here's what I'd say. Thank you, ma'am. I love you too. What I said is very simple. I think American families are good and government policy should be more pro-family. Now, if the media wants to get offended about a sarcastic remark I made before I even ran for the United States Senate, then the media is entitled to get offended. You know what I'm offended by? I'm offended that normal Americans can't afford grocery prices. I'm offended that Kamala Harris opened up the American southern border and allowed fentanyl to come into our communities. And I'm offended that she wants to be the people's president, but she won't even answer tough questions. That's what I'm offended by. And I think that's what most Americans are offended by, too.
All right. So that's J.D. Vance. Again, another dynamic political operative that is Donald Trump's running mate. So that's the latest story on where the election is pointed. It will be Trump versus, younger Trump, and Kamala Harris with a guy who is probably an old white version of Kamala Harris. Back with more in a moment.
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number again, 817-379-2172. We found some comments from vice presidential pick for the Trump campaign, J.D. Vance, on the same vice presidential pick for the Harris now Waltz ticket. And here's what we've got for you so far. This from NBC.
Obviously, the big news of the day is that Tim Waltz has been nominated as the VP, or is now the presumptive nominee, I should say, for Kamala Harris. My view on it is it just highlights how radical Kamala Harris is. This is a person who listened to the Hamas wing of her own party and selecting a nominee. This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Waltz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020. And then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So it is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris, that she doesn't care about the border. She doesn't care about crime. She doesn't care about American energy. And most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
All right. So that's NBC. And very quick turnaround on J.D. Vance's take on his counterpart, Mr. Waltz, Governor Waltz from Minnesota. And there you go. Now, like I said, this is fragmentary, and there are very interesting pieces of information coming around from various sources. I've long said that the only functioning part of NBC News is CNBC, and one of their hosts had some words talking about Donald Trump as perhaps the next president of the United States and what American investors should be thinking about when they make their choice later.
If you care about your paycheck, you go with Trump. If that's what you do.
You do?
Yeah, well, he wants to cut your taxes.
Oh, he wants to cut taxes.
Your taxes.
My taxes got raised enormously,
Well,
as
no, he
you know,
wants
under
to
the
cut
last
that.
Trump administration.
I don't know if he wants to cut your president.
No. I'm in a blue state.
Oh, yeah, no, forget
wanna
you're
kill-
out.
they wanna
You're
kill
out.
us.
I tried to I tried to go to.
They want to put us out of
Berkshire,
business.
Pennsylvania.
That's
It's not
what
as
they
easy
want
as
to
I
do to
thought.
us.
I can become an
And they already
Italian
did
citizen
by getting rid of the salt tax deduction.
All right, so you could see that there was a little bit of a problem there. The guy on the left was saying you're trying to put us out of business, talking about CNBC with that comment with the other guy, the other investor, saying, well, you know what, you ought to go with Trump if you want your taxes lowered. So obviously this was live or close to live, and they didn't have a chance to stop it. But you could see how the mainstream media is going to have a problem, because in the case of CNBC right there, when it comes right down to it, all money is green. It isn't blue for Democrats or red for Republicans. It's green. And there are going to be an awful lot of realities that this is the case of progressive politics in the United States. There are a lot of people making a lot of very loud, very obnoxious, indeed anti-American statements left and right regarding progressive policies to be imposed on the American people. And they essentially get away with it because the press really doesn't want to put themselves in a position where they are going against their de facto hope for the presidency. They just don't want to go down the road in any way, shape, or form that supports Trump. Unfortunately, a lot of what is American supports a candidate who is not progressive, who is not leftist, who is not interested in a socialist America moving forward. I mean, there are certain things in the American economy, and those things in the American economy are, if you work hard and you are smart and you actually focus on what you want to do, you can succeed with a country that gives you opportunity. The progressive left has made these veiled statements of, well, everybody ought to get a fair shot. Everybody ought to have a fair chance. Everybody ought to have what everybody else has. That's communism. And you can't have communism without a socialist government, a gigantic socialist government overseeing the, quote, fairness. So once you have a communist ideology, and as opposed to a capitalist one, which is what I'm talking about when it comes to the realities, you know, the marketplace still has the ultimate power in American economics. People with money buy products that are put together by these companies and these corporations, and the companies and corporations with the best products make the most money. Ritz Crackers, perfect example. Nabisco. So in a socialist world, then what you end up with is everybody gets the same basic allotment. And in order to do that, you have to have people that lord over giant bureaucracies that make sure they know what the basic allotment ought to be. Well, that means you have more politicians making more decisions about people's private lives. And then things get dangerously out of hand. We've seen people go to X, say something positive. Oh, wow. Maybe I should put myself back on camera. Go to X and just say something positive about Donald Trump and watch the vitriol that comes back. That's one thing, because it's just a bunch of people on X that are just yakking. But when you start standing up and saying things when it's a government project, not a social media outlet, when that rhetoric comes back, it comes back with threats. And we've seen it with the FBI, the DOJ, the IRS, the CIA, all of the deep state actors that have essentially lorded over this country since the last half or so of the Trump administration. Is that what you want more of? Well, if that's what you want, then Tim Walz is your guy. So that's what we've got in the first hour of the Wells Report. We'll be back with more, including the very latest from whistleblowers having to do with the assassination attempt and my take on just exactly what all that means next.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. On this broadcast, we report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We do make commentary. We make commentary based on the depropagandization of the news that we put out every single day. That commentary is not partisan. That commentary is factual. I believe that in order to make a decent decision in the upcoming election, you should have facts. Whether they promote a particular political ideology or not, facts should drive your decision, in my view. I could be wrong. Kamala Harris said that Tim Walz is going to be her running mate based on how she feels about him personally. Okay, well, is that personal feeling something that should be a part of government policy? That's a decision you should make. And so if you believe that, by all means, join us. 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. News, analysis, commentary, and debate on the Wells Report. A whistleblower has been speaking with Josh Hawley. He is the senator from Missouri, and he has been saying some things that are essentially worldwide news. This from the London Daily Mail. A whistleblower is claiming that the lead Secret Service agent in charge of Donald Trump's deadly Butler, Pennsylvania rally was, quote, inexperienced and failed to implement appropriate security protocols. The complaint comes weeks after the attempt on Trump's life by Thomas Matthew Crooks, who shot Trump from a perfect location and relatively close range to the former president as he spoke at a July 13th campaign rally. The testimony comes from a whistleblower with direct knowledge of the event, according to a letter provided to the London Daily Mail from the office of Senator Josh Hawley. Concern over the lead agent who is still doing protective visits, Hawley is now demanding in a letter to the Secret Service Acting Director Ronald Rowe that the ineffective lead site agent be suspended and investigated immediately. Your refusal to hold this individual accountable is increasingly inexplicable, said Hawley. Quote, the sheer failure of the Secret Service on July 13th is beyond measure. Why has no one been held accountable? Why has no one been fired? The more whistleblowers tell me, the more unbelievable it is. The former president and more Americans aren't dead. They need to suspend the lead site agent, get them out of the field, and give us answers. A separate whistleblower has told Hawley that the same lead site agent personally made decisions that likely compromised the overall security of the event. The site agent, the lead agent, was known to the Trump campaign to be inexperienced, ineffectual, to be, frankly, incompetent at their job. I'm also told by whistleblowers that day she was not enforcing normal security protocols. There is video on this. It does come from Jesse Waters' primetime on Fox News. Here is what Josh Hawley had to say directly to Jesse Waters a little while ago.
Well, what they've been saying, Jesse, is that this individual, the site agent, the lead agent, was known to the Trump campaign to be inexperienced, to be ineffectual, to be frankly incompetent at their job. Well, I'm also told by whistleblowers that on that day, she was not enforcing the normal security protocols. She was not checking people's IDs. She did not use Secret Service agents. Most of the agents there that day were not Secret Service agents. They were Homeland Security agents. And get this, Jesse, most of them had never worked a rally before. And yet this is who she chose to staff the event with, and she didn't train them or integrate them. From top to bottom, it was a total disaster. Jesse, it is a miracle, not only that Trump is alive, but that more good Americans were not killed. It's unbelievable.
You're saying that the site agent in charge of this security in Butler wasn't checking IDs? What do you mean? She was just letting people in?
That is what whistleblowers tell me, is that IDs were not checked to allow individuals into secure areas, Jesse. In other words, it was a total free-for-all. Whistleblowers portray to me a circumstance, a situation that was totally out of control, where people were milling around, including in what were supposed to be highly secure areas. Nobody knew who they were. By the way, it was also the lead site agent's job to make sure that the line of sight for where Trump was clear, that agents could see all angles, and she didn't do that. In fact, I'm told that the line of sight was obstructed, which means that agents from different angles couldn't really see around Trump, couldn't see potential dangers to Trump. This is pretty textbook stuff, Jesse. And what whistleblowers say to me is none of it was done properly. None of it was done by the book. And frankly, when you know all that, it's amazing more people weren't killed. This person needs to be fired, as does anybody who had leadership on that day.
All right. So those are pretty serious and straightforward assertions by the Missouri senator. So these abnormalities that we're talking about do certainly make themselves obvious with even a casual understanding of what happened on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania. So let me get back to the London Daily Mail article. The Missouri senator noted a slew of abnormalities with the tragic rally, from flags that obstructed the agent's view to authorities foregoing ID checks. First, campaign material such as flags were permitted to be placed around the stage and catwalk used by the former president, despite the fact these items were typically prohibited because of how they affected line of sight of those agents responsible for identifying threats. Second, the Secret Service did not check IDs when issuing credentials that authorized access to the restricted areas of the site. Third, the whistleblower alleges that Homeland Security investigators, the agents, Homeland Security investigations agents at the July 13th event, told campaign officials they had never staffed a rally before and did not know the proper procedures. Toward the end of the letter, Hawley, whose office has received a deluge of whistleblower material since the assassination attempt, struck an incredulous tone. These individuals, or these allegations rather, raise serious questions about the lead site's agent's conduct and the individual you have so far refused to hold accountable. You are also jeopardizing the security of protectees by allowing this individual to continue working. The senator demanded responses to his questions, requested the agent's suspension by August 12th. Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe revealed failures from the day former President Donald Trump was nearly assassinated in a C-SPAN interview on Friday. Rowe also revealed that nobody has yet been fired over the Trump near-death experience. The acting director explained the Secret Service officials had no radio communications with local police and were not aware that Thomas Matthew Crooks had a gun aimed at the ex-president before he opened fire. Rowe confirmed there was someone who did, in fact, radio out that they had seen the individual with a weapon. What I can tell you is that piece of information, that vital piece of information, and by no fault of anyone, it was a very stressful situation. It did not make it over. Let's talk about that, shall we? Stress. Stress in an operational environment. Why is there stress in an operational environment? Certainly the enormity of the task. Donald Trump is someone who the political left fears, They have done everything they possibly could to indeed hinder, if not derail, if not destroy Donald Trump. It has not worked. Tucker Carlson, in an interview with Donald Trump directly, said, so they've tried to humiliate you. They've tried to castigate your morality. They have done everything they possibly could. The next thing is what? An assassin's bullet? And Donald Trump immediately, very professionally said, well, that's not something that we should dwell on, et cetera, and moved on with the rest of his interview. That was over a month ago. That was like 8 weeks ago, before the assassination attempt. And so what do we have here? Do we have something much bigger? Do we have something that is, shall we say, put in place, a set of circumstances put in place that would allow someone to indeed take a shot at the president? That's what it appears like to me. But getting back to the stress aspect of it, why is there stress? What causes stress in a terribly important operational situation? There are only a couple of things. One, the people that are there know that they don't know what they're doing. The people from DHS saying we never worked a rally before. That's stressful. We put somebody in charge who does not follow normal security protocols. Forget the people that are talking about it. Forget the whistleblowers. Forget Josh Hawley. Let's talk about the actual Secret Service agents on the ground, knowing full well that basic procedures are not being followed. That leads to fear. That leads to stress. An enormously stressful event? Not so much. Should you be vigilant? Sure. Should you understand the enormity of your task? Absolutely. But should you absolutely know what you're doing? And moreover, should you be able to trust the people on your team to also know what they're doing? When any of these pieces fail to materialize, then stress ensues. Well, what does stress lead to? Stress leads to bad decision making. It leads to uncertainty. I am not a Secret Service agent. I am not trained. I'm as many of my dear friends have pointed out, I'm a DJ. And that's actually true. I'm a radio personality. But I'm also somebody that has spent an awful lot of time in tactical world. I've spent an awful lot of time learning about security, something that is called by the United States military as force protection. I have studied everything I get my hands on regarding force protection. It's a passion of mine. To protect the people that are doing the job, not because you're qualified to do the job, but you are qualified to make sure they have all the tools. Force protection is, I think, a sacred task to protect my troops, my soldiers, my coworkers, my family from harm. And the rules of engagement are widely known. Unauthorized person, plus firearm, plus being in an unauthorized location equals bang. And you don't sit there and say, well, no, wait a minute, is that one of those cops from the other side? No. Is that a local cop? No. No. If you're sitting there and you're in a counter sniper position, and you see somebody that you don't know in a place where they are not authorized, and they are carrying a long gun, and oh, by the way, not in uniform, not standing there plainly so that everybody can see them, but actually skulking around, you kill them. That's basic. Why didn't that happen? Well, let's get back to the stress. If the person in charge isn't very clear about what should be happening, then the people that are actually trying to do the job are not clear about what should be happening. And so the counter sniper hesitated. hesitated until it was obvious that indeed Donald Trump had come under rifle attack. And then Thomas Matthew Crooks was dispatched very quickly, but not quickly enough. He should have never gotten in position. He should have never gotten in position. The counter sniper team knew there was somebody on the roof. They could see him. They had a much better angle. They could still see him, and they didn't shoot him. So how does all this come together? Well, I'm going to share that with you next, because I've come to some conclusions, and I want to share them with you, and I will. This is the Wells Report, telephone number 817-379-2172, as we come together. Tuesday, August 6th, year of our Lord, 2024.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. In the world of intelligence, information is gathered from many different sources. Think of these pieces of information as jigsaw puzzle pieces. And they're put in various boxes that are labeled national security, Middle East, political, domestic politics. And these particular jigsaw puzzle pieces are not necessarily from the same puzzle. Some are, but most aren't. And so they don't actually fit together. But they do inform any particular given situation. And so what you try to do is you try to put yourself in a position where you make the right call or you make an intelligence estimate based on the pieces of information that you have. I do have access to information that is outside the public domain. I don't use it. I don't use outside public domain information, although it's very nice to have, because you can't find it, so I don't use it. And so I have taken the pieces that are readily available to anyone reading the newspapers. And granted, I spend hours reading newspapers every day, news websites. I chase things down. I do research on all of the things that I'm going to talk about on this broadcast. And I've come up with the following assessment, the following intelligence estimate about what we see. When it comes to the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting, there were circumstances in place that would allow someone murderous access to former President Donald Trump. No surprise there. You've seen it for yourself. The people that are responsible for making sure that the former president was safe violated any number of standard practices, mainly based on common sense, and indeed written in blood in the pages of the manuals that tell people how to do these things and the training that they do. That's also obvious. But what we have here is we have a consistent pattern of government operatives forcing us to make a decision, which is there competent evil at work? Or are the people responsible for allowing this incompetent, this competent evil to succeed? Are they incompetent? The various permutations of this whistleblower testimony now lead to the fact that the person in charge of the entire rally was incompetent. Okay, maybe. That she had picked DHS personnel, which we reported on this broadcast, instead of Secret Service personnel. Again, widely available. So we're expected to believe that what we have here is we have incompetence ruling the day and having to do with the opportunity given to Thomas Matthew Crooks to indeed take a shot at President Donald Trump. So the circumstances are in place. So my intelligence estimate says, okay, incompetence at the site with untrained personnel being handled by an inexperienced and possibly incompetent site supervisor. Another part of the intelligence game is once you get all these puzzle pieces put in place, then you make an estimate as to your confidence level in your decision making. At this level that I just described, that confidence level is somewhere in the vicinity of 65 to 70%. I believe 65 to 70% of what I just shared with you is completely correct. Now we have to go further. Who put this agent in charge? Who made the decision to use DHS personnel instead of Secret Service personnel? Again, all in the public record. Who made those decisions? Well, that decision making could indeed be made by the acting director of the Secret Service. And just exactly who is this guy? Robert Rowe? Is that his name? I'm double checking here. So Ronald Rowe, sorry. So Ronald Rowe apparently had something to do with both putting these people in charge, the actual makeup of the force, and indeed there is also reporting that he was someone who gave thumbs up or thumbs down to more assets requested by Secret Service personnel. In that particular estimate, my confidence level is somewhere around 55 to 60%, but better than half a chance. He is now the face of the United States Secret Service, and he is moving forward with all of this, but is he compromised by his decision-making in the Secret Service? 55, 60%. I believe that, yeah, he's compromised. So then what you have to do is then you have to start, and this tree based on things that you surmise that are driven by facts in the public domain, these things now spread into conspiracy. If indeed there was a willingness to use other than Secret Service personnel at that site, if indeed there were decisions made not to provide anything beyond the typical former president security services, then you have to understand who's making those decisions. Well, where does that go? That goes from Ronald Rowe to the office of Alejandro Mayorkas. Again, in the public domain, Alejandro Mayorkas has stubbornly stuck to things that are obviously untrue, not based on accusations by others, but based on knowledge, eyes, ears, video of what you see having to do with the southern border. Texas National Guardsmen being overrun at a particular illegal port of entry, while this guy says that the border is secure. And so the border is secure, huh? Well, that's up for debate, et cetera, depending on your point of view and whether or not you're willing to suspend disbelief. But what we do have is we have Alejandro Mayorkas ignoring plain, obvious truth to move forward with a political agenda. Again, this intelligence report carries a confidence level of somewhere around 55 to 60. Well, I'll make it 55 to 65%. Alejandro Mayorkas is a political sociopath. And he's not being held to account. There's a small caveat that goes with that. The Republican Party is not holding him accountable either. Oh, sure, they brought him up there and tried to make him look stupid. But they haven't done anything to actually nail him to the wall. Why? Well, because they're Republicans. Republicans are losers. And when it comes to politics and all the things that decorate politics and all that kind of stuff, that's usually not a big deal. But when it comes to protecting a former president, an unwillingness to nail these people to the wall for what is obvious incompetence is not being done. That's just a caveat. Let's continue moving forward. So we have the obvious problems at the rally. We have the decision-making putting those people in charge of the rally. We have decision-making on top of the people who made decisions about the rally, and that leads to Alejandro Mayorkas, who is not a reliable human being who will supplant plain reality for the political imperative. Again, my confidence level in all of those assessments, 65 to 70%, 50 to 65%. And so where does all this lead, John David? I'm so glad you brought up all this stuff and you gave us this intelligence analyst essay. Well, where does all this lead? This leads to what appears to be a politically driven, monstrous willingness to kill your political opposition because you've tried everything else. The American public has seen right through it. You have decided, these people have decided, that indeed Donald Trump stands a much better chance of winning the presidency than anybody will ever say in the mainstream media. And therefore, they have decided that their entire political agenda is at risk given the re-election of Donald Trump. That particular intelligence estimate goes up further again to 65 to 75%. That my confidence level in that estimate is 65 to 70%. 65 to 75%. So we're well over 50% here. And please understand that nothing that I'm saying to you means anything to you. It just means something to me unless I'm being convincing. But I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to give you what I'm thinking. So, what am I saying? Let's get down to the brass tacks of it. After careful analysis of all of this, I believe that indeed the current political machine that is in power in Washington, D.C., is willing to assassinate Donald Trump to stop him from what they consider to be a ruinous set of policies should he be elected to the presidency of the United States. Now you're saying, oh gosh, for crying out loud, John, I came up with all of that before. I had that, but you were guessing. And to a degree, I'm guessing. I'm not giving you things that I believe are 100% because nothing ever is. I'm looking at the circumstances, reducing them to their most basic level. The most easily explained or analyzed parts of this puzzle to give you this explanation. There is a deep state. The deep state has had its way for decades. Chuck Schumer famously said, you don't ever take on the American intelligence, the American intelligence community, because they've got 6 different ways from Sunday to take you out. That's almost a direct quote from Chuck Schumer. So the deep state has made it plain to politicians just exactly where they stand in the true power structure of the United States of America. So I believe that the government of the United States, as currently structured, is willing to kill its political opponents, especially if they are in a position to take that power away. And I'm not guessing. This is analysis. Now, where does that leave us? That leaves us in a tight spot. Leaves us in a tight spot, doesn't it? What do we do with something like that? They certainly have the power. They don't need to call out the United States military. They can just, as it was famously said by Sonia Sotomayor in what I consider to be an incredibly ill-conceived dissent when it comes to presidential immunity, the decision made by the Supreme Court. Well, you just send out SEAL Team 6, and they dispatch whoever political opponent happens to be in the way. And the president thus would be immune. Well, he wouldn't be. He wouldn't be at all. Just like the people who are trying to kill President Trump, they're not going to be immune. Oh, their mouthpieces in the propagandist media may spew the party line, the government line, but the people of the United States know. What I'm saying is not some wild-eyed conspiracy theory. It's based on everything we know, that we've seen with our own eyes. Now, what do we do? First of all, we pray. We lead with faith. We are reminded by our own experience growing in this nation, growing up in this nation, that regardless of whatever political furor that we're inured with or saturated by, this nation has always been the beneficiary of the right guy showing up at the right time for the right reason. It goes all the way back to FDR, probably further than that, but these are the best examples. The nation was in economic disaster. It was called the Great Depression. Were all of those government projects, all those government agencies put together to put Americans to work, were they typical free market capitalist constitutional America? No. No, they were socialist, and they were discussed as such at the time. The government put its own citizens to work. That was he was the right guy at the right moment. When it came to him leaving the national stage because of a brain explosion, let's put it that way. He had a hemorrhage in his brain and died. Harry Truman became the president of the United States. At the end of the Second World War, that plain speaking, plain thinking, everyman American made the decision to drop nuclear weapons on Japan and stop the war cold. Again, there was somebody there who was the right guy at the right time. John Kennedy shows up and inspires a nation in all kinds of ways. The right guy at the right time. The Johnson administration, not necessarily the right guy at the right time, totally bollocksed up the Vietnam War. Mistake. Richard Nixon found what needed to be some very serious work done on the American economy and on the world stage through diplomacy and foreign policy. I'm not saying that either of those guys were the right guys at the right time. And we move forward past Gerald Ford, and we get Jimmy Carter. Again, not necessarily the right guy at the right time, but the guy who followed him, Ronald Reagan, was. 17% inflation. You think you have problems at 9%. You should have lived through the 70s when it was 17% inflation. That was horrific. Ronald Reagan was an economist, and the American people elected him. And he fixed it. Bill Clinton saw the success of Ronald Reagan and indeed brought a more liberal, but certainly classic Democrat spin on what Ronald Reagan left him. Again, the right guy at the right time. President Obama, or President George W. Bush, another plain-speaking guy with basic ideas, gets thrown into the war on terror. the right guy at the right time. President Obama, the right guy at the right time. Because he was an African American man, and it was time to elect an African American man as our president. And then there was all manner of manipulation of that particular fact, because the Rice Bowl of race baiting, the industry of divisional race in America, was threatened. And so at the very moment Americans proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that color did not matter with respect to the presidency of the United States, we were thrown 20 years back in time for racial divisions that we hadn't seen from the 60s and all the way back to the 60s. And then Donald Trump appeared, a guy who understood that leftist progressive policy was taking this country a different direction. And then Joe Biden. Donald Trump, the right guy. Joe Biden was the right guy for the progressive left, the deep state, who wanted to keep all this stuff rolling, the control of the American public. And now we're faced with whether or not we're going to put Donald Trump back in office. And this deep state who have worked their way through consolidation of power based on non-electoral means. Now has worked to end the life of Donald J. Trump because of the threat he represents. So putting all of this together, I know the assertions of a malevolent American government seeking to protect its political power is very conspiratorial. And for that, I apologize. But you can't, if you're me, you can't take what we have working through step by step, careful analysis, research. I have not been able to come up with a better explanation. And so what is the check and balance, John David? The check and balance is someone who disagrees with my assertions, calling me on the telephone, 817-379-2172, and tell me how I got it wrong. I'm not trying to incite you. I'm not trying to provoke you. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to inform you. My politics are American constitutionalist. They're not Republican. They're not Democrat. They're not progressive. They're not conservative. They're American. If I could wave a magic wand, I was thinking about this yesterday, in fact. I really would love to interview Kamala Harris. I tried interviewing Hillary Clinton. I tried to get President Obama on this broadcast. I quit after 300 inquiries. I'd love to talk to President Trump. I'd love to talk to Elon Musk. I'd love to be able to have conversations with these people, not to play politics with them, not to debate, but to hear their points, asking questions to clarify them, not to debate with them, because it's about facts. But I won't be able to do that probably. I'll keep trying. Because I want to find out just exactly what's going on behind the scenes. I'd love to talk to these progressives who believe that killing your political opponent is the only course they have. Because that's how it appears to me. And then we have to come together as Americans to figure out what the solutions are. I know what one of them is. Elect someone else. Put somebody in there that's a disruptor. Put somebody in there that will has suffered the lash of the deep state, has seen sabotage of his particular agenda. And I'm not giving, this is not an endorsement of Donald J. Trump. This is an endorsement of the right guy at the right time. The United States needs us to do that again. Now, you could believe that's Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. You could believe that's Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. But what I believe is that we have to make a decision in this nation to rid ourselves of those who can only see a bullet as a solution. And we'd better do it fast, or we're going to see that solution way too many more times. This is the Wells Report.
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
Consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, but you've got to call now. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. You know this guy, Amit Priyavadan Mehta. Amit Mehta. You're sitting and going, wait a minute. Who? Yeah. He presided over cases to the January 6th United States Capitol attack. The January 6th, 2021 Capitol attack. He is a federal district judge for the United States District Court in Washington. As I said, he presided over the January several cases regarding January 6th. He is also someone who, beginning in 2021, served on the United States Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and thus was on the panel that was lied to by the FBI regarding Russian interference, the Russian collusion case against Donald Trump, and signed off on at least 4 times wiretaps to Donald Trump's campaign and transition operatives. So he's been lied to by the DOJ and the FBI and went along with it. That's just some background. He has just ruled against Google. He says that Google has violated U.S. antitrust law with its search business and handed the tech giant a staggering court defeat with the potential to reshape how millions of Americans get information online and to upend decades of dominance. Quote, after having carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist. It has acted as one to maintain its monopoly. It has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act. The decision by the U.S. Court for the District of Columbia is a stunning rebuke of Google's oldest and most important business. The company has spent tens of billions of dollars on exclusive contracts to secure a dominant position as the world's default search provider on smartphones and web browsers. You can't go anywhere without Google trying to convince you to become your default browser. Those contracts have given it the scale to block out would-be rivals like Microsoft's Bing and DuckDuckGo, the U.S. government alleged in an historic antitrust lawsuit filed during the Trump administration. Now Meta, that powerful position has led to anti-competitive behavior that must be stopped. Specifically, Google's exclusive deals with Apple and other key players in the mobile ecosystem were anti-competitive, said Judge Mehta. Google has also charged high prices in search advertising that reflects its monopoly power in search, he added. Those contracts have long meant that when users want to find information, Google is generally the easiest and quickest platform to go to, which in turn has fueled Google's massive online advertising business. While the court did not find that Google had a monopoly in search ads, the broader strokes of the opinion represent the first major decision in a string of U.S. government-led competitive or competition lawsuits targeting big tech. This case in particular has been described as the biggest tech antitrust case since the government's antitrust showdown with Microsoft at the turn of the millennium. How did Google find itself in this position? They started playing politics. That's how they did it. They started altering their search results. They started and continue to tailor the search results that you ask for along a political basis. And that is why they're in this position now. And that is why they stand to lose a gigantic portion of their monopoly, and by all rights should. You see, when COVID happened, I went to the CDC website directly and started reporting what they were telling me. And then I noticed things changing based on the political narrative. At that point, I said the CDC had stopped telling us the truth and started playing politics. And that's exactly what they did. Information that I had developed to bring to you on this broadcast regarding the realities of SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, the disease it causes or caused. I was able to develop some resources and research that over time just disappeared, supplanted by political reporting as opposed to factual reporting. And that is why Google just lost this case. Politics. You cannot manipulate truth, especially if you are a search engine. If you are a search engine and it's the biggest part of your entire business model, then be truthful. There are no regulations that will mandate truth. There are no regulations that will mandate ethical behavior. None. It requires ethical leadership. It's the difference between this broadcast and Google, apparently. They'll play politics. I deal in fact. If they had dealt in fact, they would not be looking at the end of their monopoly as a search engine. And so they deserve what they deserve, don't you think? This has been the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. Tell me what you think. Send me an email, thewellsreport@frontier.com. Until tomorrow, God bless you and yours. Take good care of yourself. And thanks very much for joining us on this edition of the Wells Report. See you again tomorrow.